Welcome to Whole Team Eats Podcast, a 24/8 media production. Ever wonder who trains your favorite athlete? Join Tim Miller as he takes a look at the behind-the-scenes training of professional and collegiate athletes. Tim connects with trainers, athletes, and others in the sports community to share their stories. This podcast is dedicated to highlighting the work of athletes and trainers to inspire action and build community.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to an all-new episode of Whole Team Meets Podcast. This is episode 11, season 2. I'm your host, Tim Miller, and on this show, I sit down with PJ Quarrie, owner and founder of Acceleration University. After moving to Baltimore as a kid, PJ grew up playing sports before attending Calvert Hall and ultimately graduating from Dunbar High School. PJ was a varsity athlete in both football and basketball as a sophomore in a school that produced professional athletes including Tavon Austin, Sam Cassell, and Muggsy Bogues. PJ's relentless pursuit of working on his craft as an athlete and studying film of some of the greats such as Emmitt Smith, Marshall Faulk, and Barry Sanders fueled his passion to launch a career in training. On the show, we discussed how it was after his cousin received a Division I offer to play football that he asked him to train him. This was based off what his cousin had seen PJ do to transform himself as an athlete. It was at this time that other trainers in the area were starting to build a culture of training. PJ started to use social media to promote his training, and it was ultimately what launched him to where he is today. It is my pleasure to introduce PJ Quarrie, owner and founder of Acceleration University, also known as AccelU, to the show. PJ, welcome.
How you doing? Appreciate you for having me on.
Yeah, and it's been a little while since we last connected. Obviously, you're down in Baltimore training athletes of a variety of sports. We're happy to finally have you on the show. But where a lot of my episodes start, can you tell us about training for 2023, how it's been so far, almost 4.5 months in?
Training for 2023 has been good for real. Can't really complain. Um, Started off, of course, the top of the year, mostly lacrosse heavy, as they were in the towards the end of their off season, just trying to get all those guys ready. High school guys, primarily work with Calvert Hall. I train a handful of girls individual, and I have some individual clientele that play at other high schools in the surrounding areas.
Now, is lacrosse your main sport at this point, or is it just one of the many sports that you train?
One of the main sports, football. Mainly, I'm doing football and lacrosse right now. My transition, of course, the off seasons kind of work perfectly. As football go in the season of August, that's really like the start of the lacrosse season, August, September.
Okay. And in addition to that, are you also training just general population clients, or is it all sports for you?
Um, all sports right now. I haven't done general pop consistently probably since during COVID, probably like 2021.
Great. Yeah, we know you're really entrenched in the sports community down in Baltimore. You do a lot of different sports, obviously Calvert Hall being one of the top. At this point, you are focusing, what it sounds like, on lacrosse and football. And in lacrosse particularly, you're dealing with one of the top schools in Calvert Hall. So we're going to go more into your training in just a second. But I just want to take a step back and actually talk about your background. So where you grew up, what sports you played, and how that kind of propelled you into a career of training.
So I grew up. Well, I was born in New Jersey, and I moved here when I was 9 to Baltimore, Maryland. Um, I played high school ball at Calvert Hall, but graduated from Dunbar High School in East Baltimore. Um, a lot, both schools renowned. A lot of people know Dunbar from Tavon Austin, all the national championship teams that they had back in the '80s, '90s. Um, the number of pros that played at Dunbar, Sam Cassell, and so on. Spud Webb. I'm sorry, not Spud Webb. Muggsy Bogues. Sorry, Muggsy Bogues, Sam Cassell. All those guys that played down at Dunbar. So I played at both schools. Got a chance to play at both private and public school. So that was a good thing, seeing both worlds, and playing like two styles of ball, two styles of culture. and things of that nature. And I played college ball at Bowie State University, where I played football there, and I played running back. I played running back pretty much all my life. I played a little bit of defense in high school, some strong safety, outside backer, um, but primarily always been a running back my whole life. And I also played basketball. I excelled at that as well. I played varsity as a sophomore in basketball. Played AU all my life from 8 on up. So familiar, very, very familiar in both sports. Played 3 years of basketball, 4 years of football, and ran track 1 year.
Okay. And Muggsy Bogues and Spud Webb, I could see how you get confused. They're two of the
Yeah,
shorter guards in NBA history,
yeah.
right?
But definitely coming from here, God can't mess that comparison up. Or Muggsy Bogues came from the city.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sam Cassell, as we're based out of Philadelphia, he's one of the assistant coaches for the Philadelphia
Yep.
76ers. So we are big Sam Cassell. Even though he used to kill the Sixers
Yeah.
going back to his playing days, we are big Sam Cassell fans at this point. So you kind of taken us through where you grew up and what the sports played and how that kind of laid a foundation for you from a sports aspect. But how did that propel you into training, or like at what point did it click that you wanted to do training as a career?
So to be honest, I never really had like, growing up, never was like, oh, I want to be a trainer. Um, to be honest, when I was actually playing ball, like high school ball, there wasn't many trainers around. It was a handful, like Coach Troy Jones. Now we spoke about him now at House of Athlete, the head director of sports performance. You had a handful of guys. Corey Robinson started the whole next level nation, him, Corey and Devin. But that was even later. That was close to my junior and senior year. You had things like Sweat Performance in this area. People that know these gyms and know the owners of those gyms and those trainers that were in those gyms. But it wasn't many trainers coming up. But I always realized that in order to stay on top of your game, you got not just lift the weights and sprint because that's just to me is just a little generic. I would always go do position work. I was like when Ocho Cinco and them was coming out with those footwork drills back in the day, YouTube. I was always looking up stuff, trying to expand my game and trying to be different from the next running back. I would always go look up YouTube highlights and see different moves and things. Like one of my favorite running back of all time, Emmitt Smith. That's why I wore 22 majority of my life and my career. But also guys like Marshall Faulk and Barry Sanders, just saying like some of the moves they did and then just trying to go mimic them like repeatedly, which then it just became like, okay, now you're doing different drills and three-step cut drills, jump cut drills. And I was already taking guys to the field when I was in college, like getting the running backs together, like, let's meet at the field and do different drills, not knowing like exactly the formula or step by step process, but like, all right, we're gonna go ahead and do work on cut, and then we're gonna go ahead and do jump cuts. Let's catch some swing passes out of the backfield and shoot. Let's hit the weight room after this, and let's run some sprints after that. So I already had that mentality and that mindset in college of just this is what's gonna separate us. We're not just gonna get good from doing the basic winter workouts that everybody across the America that play in college football that is playing college football is doing. Got to be something to separate you. So I already kind of had that mindset. And then when my cousin, he just had received a Division I scholarship to Eastern, I said it was Eastern Washington or Eastern Michigan. Can't exactly remember. But he just received a D1 scholarship, and I mean I excel pretty much all my life at sports football. And he just asked me like because I always had that work ethic. Could I train him? I'm like, shoot, like, I don't, I'm not a trainer, but now he's like, I want to do all the stuff that you was doing. Not saying how you transform your body. I'm saying how you got faster. You're saying, yeah. And we just got after it. Started training them, and then I was just looking things up with different trainers at that time. Guys like the Foot Doctor were just coming up. Guys like Frank Camp, guys like Footwork King. This like the beginning of all that footwork stuff. So I'm looking at stuff that they're doing. I'm finding different drills. I'm on YouTube looking at the Ocho Cinco's and the Andre Johnsons and all them doing the footwork stuff down the floor. And also Gold Feet. Gold Feet was just coming out at that time, Gold Feet Global. Um, and I just started putting drills together and things like that. And then the foot doctor actually reached out to me, which is a guy that I went to college with, but when he was a senior, I was a freshman, so it was definitely a gap difference. So I only was at the school my first year and his last year, and he was just on the rise, started catching that traction with the NFL players, and he reached out to me. Probably I want to say maybe probably like 8 months into me consistently just putting out content and consistently putting out work. And I never forget the conversation. He pretty much told me like, I love your work. We know each other. We haven't been super tight over the years, but we know each other. And he was like, I want to reach out to you first on being the first person underneath the brand, especially you being from Baltimore. But he was telling me like it's gonna be a global thing. And he was like, this like the ship gonna move with or without you, kind of like take it or leave it, like straight like that. And I just thought about it for about maybe a week. And then from there, I was like, I mean, let's do it. Let's put it together and start to build something that a lot of people from that time probably would not forget. Like a lot of them guys that we training not that we trained back then. Some of these guys at LSU, some of these guys are going Division 1 now, come senior year in high school. Some of these guys have made it to the NFL and things of that nature. A lot of them guys that we were training back in 2016, 2017, 2018 together and stuff like that. So, I mean, it really kind of just clicked with that. And then people just started hitting me up and I just started building programs off of that. And then once I reconnected with Coach Troy in 2017, I think it was, right before, it was pretty much like 6, 7 months before he took the job at HOA. It kind of like put everything in full circle with all the stuff that we were doing with speed and agility, and the footwork side, and gapping the speed and agility with the performance side, and just understanding how to really train somebody from the ground up, even without a weight room. So just putting and using bands and using things that we would bring to the field, using the shapes and understanding isometric holds, understanding activation, understanding you know breaking down movement, not just jumping into the movement, breaking it down from small steps and then combining things together and understanding like different plyometric movements that directly coordinate to some of the things that we were doing. So Coach Troy really he put the icing on the cake to bridging that gap between footwork, speed, and agility, whatever you want to call it, bridging that gap with performance. And that kind of took everything to a whole nother level, tapping into that side of training, which kind of what excelled Seth, excelled me to just going to a whole nother level. And then from there, we kind of just continue to take our own ideas and really just started to study more and really dive into books. And I kind of, not kind of, I mentored underneath Troy for about 3 to 4 months before he left, coming up to his gym, just helping out, learning, coming up there 3, 4 hours in the evening. And then even when he left to go to Florida, he left me with another one of his guys, Chris Hannigan. He used to have a gym. He recently just transitioned from being a gym owner. Chris Hannigan was the owner of Route 1 Athletics and up there in Hanover, Maryland, right by the airport, by Howard County. And he left me with him, and I probably stayed and learned from Chris for another 2, 3 months. And I just took it from there. And then from there, I just started reading books, like really having my head in books, understanding. One thing Coach Troy taught us, like, you can't train the body if you don't know the body, point blank, period. And we really had to start understanding, foot, ankle, understanding, like, the different movers, what causes this, what causes that, understanding how important those, strengthening the glutes, strengthening the hamstrings, how important it is to have hip mobility, how important it is to have strong feet, mobile ankles, all these different modalities and principles. But everything always relied on the principle of what we were doing. So once we start understand how the body really functions, and it just took everything that we were already doing and making more sense of it, because we already kind of knew we was not kind of we already knew what we was doing, but bridging that performance piece, and understanding how the body truly functions, and understanding what muscles need to be targeted, what movements need to be targeted, and also understand like if this don't work, well, we got to regress and degress to this. because and finding out what the problem is. That was one of the things that always stood out to me with Coach Short. He was always about fixing dysfunctions. We got to fix what's wrong first in order for our body to get in certain positions, in order for us to be able to sprint fast, in order for us to be powerful and strong in the weight room. If you got weak ankles or if you got weak hips, we got to address those matters first. So things of that nature, small things that just took training for us to a whole nother level.
Yeah, and Coach Troy Jones was a guest of ours on Whole Team Eats podcast in season 1, and he had a great episode. And one thing that he really put a lot of emphasis on was, as you said, understanding the body and understand everything to do with training, so that you can help athletes be in the best position possible. So that preparation on your end is going to feed through to your athletes, which in turn will have your athletes trust you, which obviously has grown your business to the point it is today. And I couldn't think of many better mentors to have in your training business than somebody like Coach Troy Jones, currently at House Athlete, but obviously originally from your area in Baltimore, Maryland. And also, it's interesting that you were somewhat of a bridge from like the field to the weight room, right? Where you're not just using one or the other, you're actually
Right.
applying principles that you guys train on the field, sprint work, football work, foot cut work, and all that other stuff that you guys do on a daily basis, and then kind of bridging the gap to the weight room where it's not just lifting weights and sprints, right? It's kind of culminating the two into one and then building a full comprehensive program based on your knowledge of both aspects.
Right.
So that's very interesting to hear. Now, take a step back, and part of that story that you just told us was how the business actually grew to what it was today. So you start working with your cousin and training your cousin as he got a Division I offer, but how did you actually start to gain traction in your training business? Was it, I believe it was through social media, correct?
So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, even still, used all three. So as people started to reach out to me, because I mean, Baltimore's not a big city, but it's not a big city, but it is a big city. But if you were any somewhat good, people gonna remember your face, or you never know who was actually watching. Playing rec ball, playing high school, watch you at Bowie, things of that nature. So when people started seeing me train, it was just like, oh yeah, I remember him. He was always good. He was a good running back. He always worked hard. Blah blah blah. So people instantly started to trust me. So I started just gaining clients, and then once I started actually posting the work, chopping up videos, showing people the progression, even from guys coming from starting here, and then here we are at week 4, and here we are at week 8, 2 months in, and things of that nature, people really started to, start to catch traction. And then, of course, once I became part of the Foot Doctor brand, it kind of just took off too. Like Seth at that time, I think, was one of those first people with like 50,000 followers. He's one of the pioneers of the whole footwork, speed and agility, using the rings and all that stuff. Once I became part of that, and he kind of branched off away from Baltimore, I pretty much took that over. So once I took that over, it's just like, I had no option either, pretty much, is to be great and, pick up where he left off. Then once Troy left too, it's just like, all right, Troy, a lot of the guys that Troy was training, everybody was just funneling to me for work. So it just really just kind of fell into my lap. But of course, if I didn't deliver, whether Seth recommended me or Troy recommended me, if I wasn't delivering the messages and delivering the work, delivering the training, it didn't matter who recommended me. So I pretty much it just really just moved organically. So through Facebook, Twitter, and IG, that always to this day has been my main go-to for gaining clients, posting videos, posting flyers, just showing people like, that just, I mean, on the video, it's a clip, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, but once people get into the space, they instantly realize from the warm-up, like, wow, this is different. Like, I'm sweating, and I ain't even run away yet. I'm sweating. I haven't sprinted or did a cut. We just doing a band warm-up, which a lot of people don't even understand, like, really turning on the body, really turning on your go muscles, really working on the prime movers and putting your body in different positions and getting your body activated to certain movements that you're going to do before you even actually put your cleats on and put your sneakers on and actually get moving. So just off the warm up, people instantly know, and you can see the look in people's face like, yo, what is going on? Like, why am I sweating so hard? And why are my glutes on fire? And this, that, and third, we haven't ran, we haven't sprinted, we ain't picked no weight up or nothing. So instantly, like people just understand what's going on from the time we start warming up. But yeah, that's pretty much how I grew. Was through social media.
Yeah, and you mentioned something key. There was the trust aspect of it. So it doesn't matter how many athletes or other clients get referred to you. Obviously, you had made a name for yourself in the space at that point, but you need to do well for those athletes, or else you're not going to keep getting those referrals, and people aren't going to stick with you, right? So you have that trust level with your athletes, and it took you, time to build up as a trainer, and obviously you have, and you've done a good job, and you've delivered for those athletes. So you start working with athletes, and then you start progressing, and you have athletes who are getting D1 offers and playing in college. And then obviously some of them move up and they're playing professionally in the NFL or any other sports league that you train professional athletes. But in particular, I know we put up clips, and you work with a couple different guys. I think it's Adrian Amos
Yes,
uh, uh,
Adrian Amos.
of the Packers.
Yep,
Uh,
starting to see 9 years in. This will be his ninth year coming up.
Yep, and we know that you do a lot of work with him, and obviously for somebody of that magnitude, for almost a 10-year vet in the NFL, obviously he has to trust what you're doing because
Oh
it's his
yeah,
livelihood, right? So as he gets older and older, it's more emphasis and importance on his body and staying at the top of his game.
right.
So, what is it like gaining trust of professional athletes and working with a professional athlete?
I mean, so if you're in this business and your main target is football or basketball or soccer, whatever your main sport is, if you're a speed person, whatever you make to get acknowledgement from the professional side, like I said, whether it's a professional basketball player, football player, if you're a speed person and you're in the track, it's somebody that's an Olympian. Of course, it's like kind of like one of the highest honors and accomplishments. But once you come down off the fact like, I've worked with guys like Hollywood Brown. I worked with Matthew Judon for years and years. Gus Edwards, um, Deontay Harris, another Pro Bowl guy. Once you come down off, I guess you would quote unquote say that high, this is that person. They're just, they're regular people. They come like the similar beginnings and humble neighborhoods and from different neighborhoods and hoods, whatever you want to call them. They just happen to get on that NFL platform. But it's definitely for them to trust you. It's a big thing because these guys, you saying these guys are playing at the highest level and they're millionaires. You feel me? They're out there playing for the next contract, trying to win Super Bowls and trying to win each and every Sunday, and also get individual awards as well as team awards. So to have that person trust you is like it's a big job and it's a big duty because you preparing this person to play on Sunday. And almost everybody knows just from social media who they work with. So having them trust you year to year to year is a kind of like it's a personal thing too. Like I really want to take this guy to the next level. I want to make sure he's a Pro Bowl every year. I want to make sure Adrian has more interceptions than the year before. I want to make sure that the biggest goal though is that nobody gets hurt. Even though injuries happen, things of that nature. But I pride myself like when we talk about Adrian and a guy like Judon and these guys like Adrian, since I worked with him, not going wood, he hasn't been injured. Judon hasn't missed a game. So that's the first thing first, and that's something that his agent talks to me about that he loves is that Adrian has not missed a game since we started this back in 2020. But it's definitely it's it's like you got picked for the highest job for real that you could possibly get, and then once you have multiple guys, it's like okay, I have to build a program for each because everybody can't lift the certain way. Everybody can't have the same amount of volume. So that trust as well, especially when guys want to work with each other. To me, then you bring like that community and that brotherhood thing, like because especially here, that's not the culture here in Baltimore. And I felt like I'm one of the first. I know Troy had that type of culture, but outside of Troy, I don't have my own gym. I've created that culture. I'm the first person here in Baltimore to really have an NFL offseason. Multiple guys year after year trusting me, and they hit me at the season like, bro, I'm ready to get back to work. Like, or a guy like Judon, he don't live here anymore, so I fly down to him um, for a week or two out the off season. I wish it could be more. I got so much clientele here, but just even that, just being like, I gotta at least get with you for a whole week, 2 weeks, because I need the information and how you train and how you push me and how you teach me. I need that before I go into my NFL season. So again, like it's just like the highest honor if you're in this game, and you saying that you're a football trainer. You love training the kids and the high school guys and developing them, but shoot, when you have a chance to really work with the pro guys, it's an honor. And it's not always good. It's not always because they still pro guys and they feel like they do. Some guys not going to name drop, but you had hiccups with people maybe being late or people feeling a sense of entitlement or people not working as hard because things of that nature. But for the most part, when people get around me though, I really haven't really ran into as many of those issues because it's like respect thing. When I meet with guys, it's business first, and then we just build an organic relationship off of that. All the guys I train, we cool. Like I pick up the phone, call them. We may even hang out and things of that nature because it's just the vibe that I give off. Like I'm cool. I know and I know how to relate to people too, from all different types of backgrounds, not just being able to relate to a football player, but also able to relate to the lacrosse player and the lacrosse community and those parents and things of that nature. So I mean, if you're saying you want to be one of the best in the business and you want to be at the highest level, then your goal should have a NFL offseason or a lacrosse offseason with some of the top players as well. So I feel like I'm one of the first people to bring that culture back to Baltimore and has been, holding that culture down for the
Yeah.
past like 4 or 5 years.
And I will say, if you're going to pride yourself on one thing, keeping your players healthy and available is probably the greatest asset you could have, especially at the professional level where athletes, the difference in athletic ability is so small. Sometimes the difference is just your availability and remaining healthy, right?
Yeah.
So just taking that extra opportunity to win that spot or be on that roster to continue to do whatever you're doing to,
Yeah.
earn
That's
a
how I look at it.
livelihood.
I look at it like if I'm keeping you healthy, because you're investing in your body. So if I'm able to keep you healthy, that means you play longer. And I mean, you're in this because you love the game, but you're in this also because these guys love money. So if you play long, you make more money, you get more contracts. It just makes sense. So I take pride in
Absolutely.
that and making sure guys are healthy and making sure, like, one of the biggest things that I would say, like, was a wild thing or a thing, situation that kind of like, damn, like, is having guys hit me up on FaceTime or wanting me to work with them before the game and wanting that warm up, wanting that activation. And guys like Judon FaceTime me before a game and like, yo, I need the whole warm up, and I'm walking them straight through it. Hollywood Brown is on I have pictures of it, and they kept talking about him how he was warming up barefoot. He has a mini bank warming up barefoot, and he's doing call a high toe walk, an ankling, walking on the balls of his feet. He's doing the poke, like he's doing all these different drills because he trusts in the system. And once you start doing these warm ups and the things that we do and how we do it, it just be like second nature. Like it's hard to even go out there and play if I didn't do my correct warm up. It just doesn't feel right if I didn't warm my foot, my ankle up, my hamstring, my glutes, turn my core on, blah 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 blah. So I feel like those is probably the highest honors that guys is taking that stuff and not just saying, "Oh, I'm gonna leave it with I'm gonna leave it when I left PJ." No, I'm taking it with me, or asking me to warm them up before the game or work with them before the game is, and me one of the also like a wow, like these guys really trust and believe in the system that I'm providing.
Yeah, that must be great validation for what you've built and the processes you've put in place to have players really trusting the system and
Yeah.
then wanting to connect with you and have you relay that information right before they're doing something that is being watched by millions of people. So
Right. Yes.
that should be amazing validation for you. And quickly, I wanted to touch on, so you do a lot of professional football at this point, and a lot of football in general, but the lacrosse side of things. How did you break into lacrosse? And we know you're one of the larger lacrosse trainers down in Baltimore, which is really a hotbed for lacrosse to begin with.
Yes.
So, just by putting the two together, you have to be one of the bigger lacrosse trainers here on the East Coast. How did you crack into the lacrosse network?
So to be honest, so I've always trained a lacrosse player or two or three, but it was always been like whether I've and I never really promoted lacrosse like as much as football, of course. But I've had even before people even really knowing me of being, training Calvert Hall and training the Kellys and things of that nature. I have a girl that I was training. She a senior now. I mean, she's a freshman at Duke. I have a girl that I was training since she was young, and she was All American, UA All American, all that stuff. She's at Duke now. But this was kind of like behind the scenes because I just wasn't promoting the lacrosse as much. Her name is actually Madison. And I always had a lacrosse player or two. I've worked with guys like Ryan Drenner back in like 18. My guy, I had to look it up because his last name was Young. He played at Maryland, but I always trained a lacrosse player or two during the off season, but it really kind of broke through when Coach Kelly's son, Jake Kelly, actually DM'd me. And mind you, there's a lot going on during the 2020 and 2021. There's so many people wanting to work. And one of the few people still training never stopped. So getting DMs, and I'm looking like, also lacrosse player, but we so football heavy. And I don't even think I replied back the first time, not realizing who it was. Because
Yeah.
if anybody know in the lacrosse world, the Kellys are some of the biggest names. Coach Kelly, Brian Kelly's the head coach at Calvert Hall since I went there back in what, '07, '08, '09, '10. So they're just very renowned. They have multiple, their whole family line has always been great in lacrosse. So Jay Kelly played at North Carolina at the time. DM me and was asking about training. I don't think I said. And then he said something again. I'm like, oh my bad, bro. Still not connecting the dots. That this is Brian Kelly. He went to Calvert Hall, and I'm like, yeah, bro, we can work. Just let me know. And then we set it up. And the first session we did, I'm asking him like, and I'm like, I never played lacrosse. Like, how do you want me to train you? Some people may come for speed. Okay, you coming for just speed work. Then if you looking for like offensive work, then I'm asking you like, how do you want me to train you? Because I'm like, you play attack. Okay, cool. Now I know like, you really want to work on creating space. You want to work on dodging. You want to work on things of that nature. Just being able to, create space off your shot and really understanding how to beat your man. So he said, man, I want to work just like the football players. Like all that stuff you do for releases, for wide receivers, that running back work you do, man, I want to work just like that. And then from there, I honestly just started learning the game, really picking their brain. Then he started bringing his brother, Daniel Kelly. I don't know how familiar you are with lacrosse, but he's going crazy right now this year at University of Maryland. Both of them just working with them, and then their cousin, Mick Kelly, started coming. He's at University of Denver. And then the little brother, Shuey Kelly, started coming. And it was just like we having, big lacrosse sessions. And we got cameramen out there recording it. And because like this is the lacrosse mecca here, and there's some of the best lacrosse players to come through, the state of Maryland, and then it just grew from there. And then just picking their brain on being more technical, like after you dodge and stuff, what do you look? How are you looking to come off your shot? And then if a slide shows up, okay, I'm gonna make this like now I'm putting together like just how I do my football drills, real life scenarios, real circuits that make sense, but with my sauce and with my flavor and with my style, and they just fell in love with it. To be honest, they almost to the point like every offseason they're coming back to get faster. They're coming back to just get that movement and just I call it like just being slick, like just having that swagger, like just being able to beat your man off that 1-2 rocket step, then pushing one way, coming back, rolling back, step back, like just being able just to be unguardable out there. And I know for Daniel, somebody that never really had that in his game, he was always known as like more of a catch and shoot guy, a very, very accurate shooter. And I think he went when he left high school, he was the number one scorer ever in the state of
Wow.
Maryland. So
Wow.
for him to be able to add that sauce into his game, be able to beat his man, and understand how to create space, understand how to attack leverage and things of that nature, just took his game to a whole nother level. He went from, I know they had a monster team last year, but now he's a starter. He's hitting multiple game winning shots, multiple games, 4 goals, 5 goals. Like he's just balling out. But one day I say Daniel putting to work. Everything that he's doing this year, he earned it. You know, we out there on the hill on a Friday in 100-degree heat, 90-degree heat. We dodging up the hill. We, you know, putting together the same drills on the hill on Fridays. We going 3, 4 times a week. We lifting. We doing speed work. Like we had a whole regimen planned out for him all off season from the time that they won the championship. I think that he took about 2 weeks off and he got right back to work. So just being able to just really just locking in. But the lacrosse thing came about from the Kellys, Jake Kelly, and then I don't think his dad knew what he was doing. And he was like, bro, I gotta show my dad this. I gotta tell my dad. And his father seen the videos. I got a call from Brian Kelly. And it's just been, to be honest, it's been a blessing. Got nothing but love for Coach Kelly, Brian Kelly. He's opened up the lacrosse gates to me because his word is pretty much gold around here. So if he referred me to you, guys are like, look, Coach Kelly said it. I don't even know what you do, but Coach Kelly said you got to work with PJ. So that's just how it pretty much been going. And as I promote, I gain traction from all the way down to his youngest son, which is in middle school now. I have middle school groups, high school groups. I work with the high school team, and it's just been a great process of just growing the lacrosse, growing my brand in the lacrosse community, being known in the lacrosse community, and from there, shoot, I got pro guys too, like Matt Dunn. He's known as one of the best defensive players to probably ever play in the PLO. He's won multiple defensive MVPs. I've been working with Matt Dunn since last year. Shoot, we had a session earlier today. So just opening it up to more professional guys in the lacrosse world. Like I said, shoot, if I'm gonna train lacrosse players, I love training kids, but shoot, I want to step on that major, on the biggest stage and train those guys as well at the highest level.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that some of the lacrosse players want to train like football players, and you can apply
Exactly
some of
like
that.
football players.
You can apply that same training because and I know every sport might be a little bit different, but you're training athletes, right? You're not training by sport all the time. In some cases you are, but you're building an athlete first and then refining the skills second is what it
Gotta
sounds
lay
like.
that foundation down, whether it's we for any athlete, you playing a chaotic sport, you gotta have speed. So that speed is universal.
Yep.
You gotta have speed, you gotta have power, you gotta have like it's just certain foundational drills and things that we do universal. Whether it's a basketball player, a football player, like lateral movement drills and plyometrics and snap downs and footwork drills that just as just as conducive for all athletes.
Yeah. And if you're going to break into one family, that's the best family to break into down in Maryland. And as Maryland, you called it the Mecca of lacrosse.
Yeah.
By association, that makes you one of the top trainers in lacrosse, right? I would assume so. So we
Yep.
appreciate everything you've done in the lacrosse community, and we're obviously going to be following you, what you do with lacrosse players. To flip it over real quick, you've had a lot of success to this point, right? You've started the company with Seth, and you've grown it to where it is today. You've broken into different sports such as lacrosse.
Oh, so just to clear, my bad, just to clear that up, I was part of the Foot Doctor brand, and then I branched off in 2021, I believe it is, and that's
Okay.
what so you came about. Nothing but love for Seth and the Foot Doctor and all the rest of Foot Doctors that are still remaining Foot Doctors. But we had branched off, so me and Seth kind of built that up together. He was always the head guy, but I held it down on the East Coast and at more so the high school level, and I touched a lot of pros as well. But we parted ways, I believe in 21, but still nothing but love for Seth and all the Foot Doctors that
Okay.
still remain Foot Doctors.
So I guess you could, well, my question was going to be is obviously you had a lot of success, but what roadblocks or setbacks have you had, and how was it overcoming those setbacks? I guess that could be applied to both starting with the Foot Doctor or launching Excel U?
So I would say set the biggest setbacks was when you first starting off. I first went full time in 2017. So that was probably the first setback going full time because I had a 9 to 5. I actually put in my 2 weeks for another job, a government job. And then I realized the hours I was going to be working at the government job was something that had started, which was training. That was my love and my passion because I had been doing it for 2 years. And I'm like, I'm catching so much traction. If I stop now, I'm always going to be with a regrets. Like, what if, what if, what if? And one is some of the best advice that I ever got when I first started. And I think I was really starting to catch a wave and starting to catch people's eye and attention back in like 2016 to 17 as I was starting to grow was like a guy, Douglas McNeil. He actually played in the NFL. He played at my school. He made it to the NFL with the Seahawks. I trained him. He went from arena to the NFL, so you could what type of person he is, that grind and all that stuff, CFO, all that type of stuff. But he played a few years. He played on one of the Super Bowl teams with the Seahawks. And he told me yo, you don't know what you got, but you don't know how far you could take it. He said, best thing I can tell you is do not stop. Whether you made $50 a day and $200 tomorrow, you went 10 straight days but making no money and nobody training with you, like just keep pushing content. Do not look back because most businesses you at least gotta give yourself 5 years, and 5 years to actually grow and hit a peak. And that's one of the best advice that I got because when I transitioned from not working a 9 to 5 and having that security, knowing, okay, if I show up to work, do my basic minimum job, I'm getting paid this salary anyway, and being out there day one on your own, like, all right, the only way you're going to eat and pay your bills and put money in your pocket and be able to live that the way you want to live is you got to get out here and hustle. You got to get out here and grind. So I feel like that was the hardest part, having this ups and downs. Like, how do I get consistent? How do I have consistent clientele all year round? So even then, that's why I was doing fitness because, of course, I had to do something in the off season because the football off season, the bulk of it is from probably like April to August. What's that? 4 or 5 months. That's not enough, unless you unless you got crazy clientele, you making 5 figures a month. You can't really live off that. So it's just figuring out how to be consistent, how to maximize myself from January to August. And then once lacrosse came about, it just went to a whole nother level because it's like you just transition right into the next sport. And never have a drop off. I had to worry about, all right, what's gonna happen next? Do I need to, start promoting fitness and try and bring girls back or general fitness guys, whoever chooses to work out. But that was that's probably the roughest time was when I transitioned early on from not working and then not working 9 to 5 and then just understand that even like hitting patches like still in 2017, all right. Still like in 2018, 2019, growing when it's like you right there, like you can feel yourself crossing over to the next side and elevating, but you trying to figure out how do I get there? But you're there, you got the knowledge, you have, the programs, you have the delivery, but how do I bring in 40, 50 clients a month and keep them consistent? So that was the biggest thing was really the business side of it. I felt like not the training. Training is easy. The business side. And once I started really implementing programs like this is what we're doing at 4:30. This is what we're doing at 6. These are the groups. And then figuring out, and just understand. And then my mornings kind of cater more to like the professional athletes and just making this stuff appealing to them too. Like, because a pro don't have to work with me, especially here in the Baltimore area. This is not a hotbed for pros. This is not Miami. This is not Houston. This is not Atlanta. It's not LA. So, being able just to get guys to lock in, to fly here or come here for a week or two or stay home. If you're from here, I don't mean you got to work out here. Just to stay home or have some of those Ravens guys stay here to say, shoot, I want to work with PJ is a big thing. So just really understanding the business side, I feel like was the biggest hump. The training part once I got it and had and understood what I was doing and how to take, and I'm always learning, always growing. Not saying like I fully got it laid out, of course not. But once I knew like, oh yeah, you pretty good at this. Like you know what you're doing. You know how to take guys from day 1 to day 30. You know how to progress guys through receiver work. You know how to progress guys through running back work. You know how to progress guys through strength, through periodization, all that type stuff. Blah 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 blah. Once I knew that, it was like, all right, the business side. Like, how do I just keep, you know, keep revenue coming in? You know, even through apparel, that type stuff. You could do online programs. Just understand the business side, making money, being able to make residual money. So I would say that that part would be having an online program, things of that nature, which I still haven't officially tapped into. But just understand the business side, like on a ground level, like all right, if I have these programs, if I get 10 in one class, 10 in another class, if I got 4 or 5 sessions in the morning, what does this look like? So I feel like that was the biggest hump. And then just always wanting to learn. I'm always thirsty and well, I would say eager, not thirsty, but eager for knowledge and wanting to learn and wanting to grow. And just being able like somebody like Troy is my mentor, so it's very important for me to go down and visit him for a week. Just being around him and watching him train just makes your brain go like, yeah, this I it always humbles me. Like, damn, I thought I was almost there, but Troy always 5 steps ahead and got some new stuff and got things that you never seen before. So it's just like always being able to get around the right people and networking. I feel like that's a big thing. Is like because I feel like here, being up here like right now, to be honest with you, it ain't too many guys also I trust to teach, to learn from. So it's like certain guys that you want to be around. So just find the other guys that you like minded with to grow because you don't want to get stagnant and you don't want to be stuck in the same place that you were last year. That's one of the most scariest things is you feel like you're not elevating or you're not delivering new new I ain't gonna say drills, but just adding, even if it's something small, like last year we was doing it like this, but this year I'm taking this out and we adding this. Oh, why? Because X, Y, and Z, and it's gonna help me be better. Okay, shoot, not, we got something new. We got a new delivery, or we have a new technique, or whatever the case may be. So I feel like the biggest hump was when I quit my 9 to 5, and then just just understand the business side of this thing because you could easily get burnt out too. Training. Like, we not robots. We're humans. So definitely got to figure out how to work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, absolutely. And Troy Jones, humbling. I'm assuming you're not the only one. He does that too. But he's a great mentor, obviously for you and for many other trainers in this industry as well.
Right.
And you're right. It does take a leap of faith at the beginning, right? You need to trust in yourself and your capabilities, but you also need to trust that the work you've put in isn't going to just stop, and you're going to continue to better yourself, which is going to reflect to the athletes.
Right.
Now, just to start to wrap up here, one last question I like to ask a lot of trainers is what advice would you give to your younger self starting out in training? And would you change anything about your journey based on what you know now?
Whew. Yeah, a lot. Um, what I would really tell my younger self for a different route would have been like really trying to figure out early on, because it was just like one mindset, like younger me, if I could train a trash can, I would have trained the trash can. Like younger me was just on the field all day, every day, just thinking like hustle, 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 hustle. Which I mean, yeah, you gotta have that in you. But younger me, if I could figure out the business side earlier and understanding how to, create certain programs, middle school programs, and really promote it. High school program, really promote it, right? Breaking things down. Okay, we got running backs on these days, doing receipt, like being able to do that and really really get that content out there and understanding like working smarter and not harder. And also just really taking a lot more time to learn. Of course, you learn things over the years and as you get older, you get wiser and you learn this, that, and the third. But taking more time to learn. Early me was just like grind, grind, grind. Let's go on the field. Let's work, let's work, let's work. Instead of as I got older, I was, take that time. Like you gotta set real time to for education, and that was for to really take that time to learn to read. Like you got to set that time because you owe that to yourself and for your clients. That also makes you better. So younger me would really just take the time more out to learn the business early on, understanding like work smarter, not harder. But I feel like anybody in any field always probably had that mindset like we going hard and we kind of like maximizing you burning yourself out until you realize like there was different ways to, shoot, you don't got to this level, different ways to make money and different ways to do different things. And younger me, as I grew, I feel like um I wish I would have took more time to do um online programs. That's another thing. And I still am going to do some, but I feel like younger me, not at the very, very start, but as I really started to understand speed and running back work, just drop online programs. Even if I drop one today, 2 years later, if I drop whatever speed program, it's probably gonna be better. So I already understand that and figuring out the digital side of things. I feel like that's one of the biggest things in the training industry that people forget, which would be along the lines of working smarter and not harder.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. And I think there's a learning curve and a progression for any industry, not just training. Obviously, you need to go through some of those experiences and you
right,
need to learn to get to where you are today. Now you're able to use that experience and knowledge that you built up and apply that moving forward. So, PJ, once again, PJ Quarrie, owner and founder of Acceleration University, also known as ExcelU.
yeah.
It was great having you on the show, and we're looking forward to where things go from here.
Yep, I appreciate y'all for having me on and just over the years always connecting with me and hollering at me and reposting videos. Nothing but love over here for 24/8.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, PJ.
Yep, no problem.